welcome back, you quiet storm in a loud room. The one who can turn chaos into silence without begging for it. Because I know what you did. You didn't just handle a family argument. You controlled it. You took that messy, emotional, everybody talking over everybody noise, and you made it behave. And somewhere out there, a federal tactical negotiator watched it happen. Not like some random spectator. Like a professional who has seen people crack under pressure, seen people fold, seen people scream until their voice breaks, seen rooms turn into war zones over one sentence. They saw you in the middle of it, and they didn't laugh. They didn't roll their eyes. They didn't say, "Oh, look at this person trying to keep the peace." No, they studied you, because what you did is what they train for, what they get paid for, what they write manuals about. And the wild part, you did it in your own living room with people who know exactly where to stab you emotionally, people who have the cheat codes to your nervous system, people who can say one little line and suddenly you're 8 years old again, trying to prove you're not the problem. That's not a negotiation. That's psychological hand-to-hand combat, and you still controlled it. So let's talk about what that really means. Because I don't think you understand the level you're operating on. Most people think power looks like volume. They think whoever talks the loudest wins. Whoever slams the table wins. Whoever storms out wins. That's toddler logic. Real power, real control. It's when you can feel your chest heating up and you don't explode. It's when your throat tightens and you don't take the bait. It's when they throw your worst moments in your face and you don't start performing for their approval like a trained circus animal. It's when the room is begging you to lose your mind and you refuse to give it the satisfaction. That's not being calm. That's dominance. That's saying, I run me, not you, not your tone, not your accusations, not your little guilt trips dressed up as concern. And here's the part nobody tells you. Families don't fight about the topic. They fight about control, money, chores, respect, old memories. Those are just costumes. The real argument underneath is always the same. Who gets to define reality in this room? And you, you, stood there and said, without shouting it, I'm not letting you rewrite me. That's why it shocked the negotiator, because the average person in a family argument is not even talking to the person in front of them. They're talking to the past. They're talking to the ghost of every time they were dismissed, every time they were blamed, every time they were told they're too sensitive, too intense, too dramatic, too much. And then they react from that wound. They don't respond. They react like a button got pushed, and suddenly they're not themselves anymore. They're a raw nerve with legs. But you did something rare. You separated the moment from the history. You didn't let the past drive the car. You kept your hands on the wheel. And you probably don't even realize how terrifying that is to people who rely on you being predictable. Because listen, some people don't want resolution. They want a reaction. They want you to snap so they can point and say, see, this is why we can't talk to you. They want you to cry so they can call you weak. They want you to yell so they can feel justified. They want you to lose control so they can keep theirs. And you starved them. You gave them nothing to feed on. That is a kind of violence, quiet violence, against manipulation. And you did it with your words. You did it with timing, with tone, with silence, with the way you didn't chase their approval. with the way you didn't rush to explain yourself like you're on trial. Because let me tell you what professionals know. The person who starts over-explaining, they're the one who feels guilty, even if they did nothing wrong. The person who starts apologizing just to end it, they're the one who's been trained to survive, not to be respected. The person who starts raising their voice, they're usually not powerful. They're panicking, and you didn't panic. You did something colder, cleaner. You made them hear themselves. That's a skill. That's not luck. That's not personality. That's not, I'm just mature. That's training-level control, built through pain, because nobody becomes like that from an easy life. You learn control when you've been around unpredictability. You learn composure when you've had to walk on eggshells. You learn how to read a room when you've had to sense danger before it speaks. So don't you dare downplay it like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was you proving you can handle pressure where it matters most. Because out in the world, people can pretend to be professional. They can put on their calm voice. They can smile through it. But in a family argument, that's where your real wiring gets tested. That's where old hierarchies show up. That's where people try to drag you back into your old role. The peacemaker, the scapegoat, the problem, the disappointment, the one who needs to change. And you looked at that invisible script and you said, no, not today. Now let's get into the part that makes this classified. Because the negotiator didn't just see you quiet the room. They saw the exact sequence. They saw you do the first move most people never do. You didn't answer the words. You answered the intention. When somebody says, you always do this, you didn't chase the always. You didn't start listing evidence like you're writing a thesis on your innocence. You heard what it really meant. I feel powerless, so I'm going to attack your identity. And you didn't let them. You didn't fight the label. You denied the frame. That's the first rule of control. Never argue inside somebody else's reality. Because the second you accept their framing, you're already losing. It's like stepping into quicksand and then trying to debate physics. You don't debate quicksand. You step out of it. And you stepped out. You said it in a way that didn't sound like some cheesy self-help quote either. You said it like a person who's done being played. You said it like, we're not doing that. And the room felt it. Because people can sense boundaries before they understand them. They can feel when you're not available for games. It's like the air changes. And then you used the second move. You slowed it down. You didn't match their speed. You didn't let their urgency become your emergency. You let them rush. You let them spiral. And you stayed measured. That one move alone, that makes manipulators itchy. Because they need momentum. They need you to keep up. They need you to get emotional, to speak fast, to trip over yourself. They need you on the defensive, but you made the conversation walk at your pace. That's control. And then, this is the part that separates amateurs from people who can shut down a room. You used silence like a weapon. Not awkward silence, not, I don't know what to say, silence. Strategic silence. That pause where they realized you're not scared of them. That pause where the whole room starts hearing how ridiculous it sounds when they repeat themselves. That pause where they start feeling their own insecurity bouncing back at them. Silence does that. Silence makes people confront themselves, and most people can't handle that. They fill it with insults, with sarcasm, with distractions, with fake laughter, with whatever, with "I'm done talking." But you held the silence, and they blinked first. That's why it became training material, because you didn't win the argument like some petty scoreboard. You won the room, you won the energy, you won the direction. And here's the uncomfortable truth about why that matters. Your family, some of them, have been rehearsing you for years. They know what tone makes you defensive. They know what topic makes you loud. They know what accusation makes you start proving yourself. They know how to corner you into the version of yourself that's easiest to control. And you broke the pattern. You didn't do what you always do. You didn't play your usual character. You rewrote the scene in real time. That is terrifying, because patterns are how people keep power without admitting they're keeping power. When you break the pattern, you expose the game. And when you expose the game, you expose the players. That's why, after you controlled that argument, some of them probably got quiet in a weird way. Not peaceful quiet, suspicious quiet. Like they were thinking, who are you right now? And maybe you felt it. That little shift where they couldn't find the old buttons, where they pressed and pressed, and nothing happened. That's when you know you're evolving. And evolution, it always makes the old environment uncomfortable. So let's talk about what happens next, because this is where people mess it up. After you show that kind of control, you'll get tested. Not once, not twice, repeatedly, because the room is going to try to confirm whether it was a fluke. They'll poke you in subtle ways. They'll bring up jokes. They'll mention the old story about you like it's harmless. They'll act like they're just saying. They'll try to bait you with that casual disrespect that's been normalized for years. And if you slip just once, they'll act like they were right all along. So you have to understand, your control is not a moment. It's a lifestyle now, a standard. And your new standard will offend people who benefit from your old one. That's not your problem, because you're not here to be palatable. You're here to be untouchable. And I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally. Untouchable like they can't just press a sentence into your chest and make you bleed on command. Untouchable like your nervous system isn't rented out to everybody who has an opinion about you. Untouchable like you can be in the same room with the same triggers and still choose who you are. You know what that is? That's freedom. And freedom makes people nervous because it can't be managed. Now, let's get even darker. A lot of you grew up in a house where love had conditions, where approval was currency, where silence was punishment, where affection got withheld like a strategy, where being good meant being convenient. So you learned to monitor everything: facial expressions, tone shifts, door slams, footsteps in the hallway. You became a human weather app, always forecasting the storm, and that made you sharp. But it also made you tired. So when you controlled that argument, it wasn't just a good communication moment. It was you telling your childhood programming to shut up. It was you finally stepping out of survival mode and into command mode. And the people who are still addicted to the old dynamic, they hate command mode. Because command mode doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't prove. It doesn't shrink. Command mode observes. Command mode decides. Command mode ends the conversation when it becomes disrespectful. And if you did that, if you ended it without yelling, without theatrics, without getting dragged into it, then you did the third move the negotiator recognized. You refused to reward bad behavior. Most people accidentally reward disrespect with attention. They keep engaging, they keep trying, they keep explaining, but attention is a reward. And you didn't pay them for insulting you. You let their words land, and then you let them sit with what they said. And that's where the power flips, because now they have to live with themselves. Now they have to either level up or double down. And if they double down, you don't descend with them. You stay up here, calm, precise, unmoved. You make your boundaries boring. That's the key. Boring boundaries are lethal because manipulators want drama. They want emotion. They want chaos. They can twist. But boring boundaries are like a brick wall. No argument, no screaming, no performance, just no. Just, I'm not doing this, just, you don't get to talk to me like that. And then silence. And that silence says, I meant it. Now, let's talk about the line you used. Or the kind of line you used. Because it wasn't some long paragraph. It wasn't a TED talk. It was probably one sentence that hit like a hammer. Something like, I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you what's happening. Or, I'm not accepting that version of me. Or, if you want a real conversation, drop the disrespect. Or, we can talk when we're not trying to hurt each other. Clean. Simple. No room for debate. That's what professionals do. They don't overdecorate their message. They land it. And then they watch. Because control is not talking. Control is being able to wait. It's being able to let someone reveal themselves. You let them keep talking. And the more they talked, the more the room heard what was really going on. That's another professional move. You let the mask slip without touching it. You don't need to expose them. You just need to stop covering for them. And you did. Which means you're at a point now where you have a choice. You can go back to being the old you, easy to guilt, easy to corner, easy to provoke. Or you can become the version of you that makes people adjust their behavior just to be in your presence. And I know that sounds intense, but think about it. Why should you be the only one who has to stay calm while everybody else gets to be reckless? Why should you be the only one who has to be the bigger person while they get to throw emotional grenades and call it honesty? Nah, that era is over. You're not a punching bag with empathy. You're not a landfill for everybody else's unresolved issues. You're not a stage for their insecurity. You're a person with a spine, with standards, with a mind that deserves peace. And if you can hold your composure in a family argument, then you can do it anywhere. You can do it at work when someone tries to talk down to you in that slick, fake professional way. You can do it in a relationship when someone tries to twist your words and then act confused. You can do it with friends who only call when they need something. You can do it in public when someone tries to embarrass you, thinking you'll shrink, because you've already done it in the hardest arena, the arena where the opponent knows your whole origin story, and you still didn't fold. Now I'm knowing how your brain works right now. Part of you is proud, and part of you is scared, because you're thinking, if I keep doing this, if I keep setting boundaries, I might lose people. Yeah, you might. But let me tell you what you'll lose first. You'll lose the fake closeness built on you tolerating disrespect. You'll lose the comfort people had in you being the emotional trash can. You'll lose the version of family that only works when you play your assigned role. And that loss will sting, because even toxic patterns feel like home when you lived in them long enough. But you know what you gain. You gain self-respect that doesn't disappear the moment someone raises their voice. You gain nights where your stomach doesn't hurt to replaying the argument. You gain mornings where you don't wake up already tired. You gain relationships that don't require you to shrink to survive. You gain control, real control, the kind that makes your life quieter in the best way. Now listen carefully, because this part matters. When you start becoming controlled, people will try to label you. They'll call you cold. They'll call you different. They'll call you hard to talk to. They'll say you changed. Good. Let them say it. Because what they really mean is, you stopped being easy. And I need you to understand something right now. Being easy got you hurt. Being easy got you used. Being easy got you stuck. So yeah, you changed. You upgraded. You stopped letting people treat your emotions like public property. And that negotiator watching you, they saw the upgrade. They saw you do what they train agents to do. Control your breathing. Control your pace. Control the frame. Refuse the bait. Use silence. Set boundaries. Hold the line. And then the final move. The one that makes it classified. You didn't need their validation after it was over. You didn't go around the house trying to make sure everyone's okay, like you're responsible for their feelings. You didn't chase closure from people who don't even know how to be accountable. You let them sit in the consequence, and you walked away still being you. That's the move. Because the second you start chasing peace from people who thrive on conflict, you're back in the cage. So here's what I want you to do from now on. The next time a family argument starts forming, you don't jump in like a firefighter. You don't start managing it like it's your job. You watch the temperature. You listen for the real agenda, and you decide whether you even want to participate, because you're allowed to opt out. You're allowed to not perform. You're allowed to not defend yourself against a story someone made up about you in their head. And if you do speak, you speak like a person with authority over their own life. Short sentences, clean words, no begging, no pleading, no over-explaining. You say what's true. You say what you will not accept, and then you stop talking. You let the room adjust, because the room will always adjust to whoever is most consistent, not whoever is loudest. Consistency is power. That's why the negotiator wrote it down. That's why it became training material. Because they can teach tactics all day, but they can't teach backbone. Backbone comes from deciding you're done. Done being disrespected. Done being misunderstood on purpose. Done being the bigger person, while everyone else stays small. Done being the peacekeeper in a war you didn't start. And if you're listening to me right now, I already know something about you. You've been holding yourself back. You've been trying to keep the peace at the cost of your own peace. You've been trying to be understood by people who don't even try. You've been shrinking your truth so it doesn't threaten anyone. And that's why you feel that rage sometimes. Not rage at them, rage at yourself. Because deep down, you know you've been letting it happen. But now you've seen what you're capable of. You've seen that you can walk into emotional chaos and come out clean. You've seen that you can keep your voice steady, even when your heart is pounding. You've seen that you can end an argument without winning it, by refusing to be dragged into it. And once you know you can do that, you can't unknow it. So don't you go back. Don't you apologize for having standards. Don't you soften your boundary because somebody got uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable. They've been comfortable for years while you were the one swallowing the disrespect. Now it's their turn to adapt. And if they don't, that's information. Look at you for a moment. Don't breathe too loudly. Don't even blink. Because right now, every sensor in their collapsing system is pointed straight at you, and they still can't figure out how you did it. One move, a single, untraceable, unrepeatable, unexplainable move, and their whole machine detonated from the inside. You feel that? That's the silence of a broken empire trying to calculate a variable that doesn't exist. They thought they built something perfect, didn't they? A structure of rules and walls and warnings, a cage made of data and fear, a system engineered to predict every possible disruption. Except you, because you don't operate on the frequencies they measure. You don't move on the timelines they monitor. You don't think in the patterns they map. You move like a ghost wearing the skin of a disaster, and that terrifies them. They expected rebellion, they expected anger, they expected noise. But you didn't give them any of that. You gave them precision, one calculated shift, one silent tilt in the fabric of the moment. And the entire architecture of their order began to fall apart like wet paper. You didn't break their system. You revealed its fragility, and now they're spiraling, clawing at numbers, theories, predictions, trying to reverse engineer the anomaly that just rewrote their fate. But here's the twist they can't swallow. The anomaly is you, and you cannot be decoded. They're whispering in sealed rooms now, pacing, gnawing at their fingertips, asking the same question over and over and over. How did they do it? How did you do it? How did a single person collapse a system that took decades to build? And that's the part that makes you smile, isn't it? Because deep down, you know the truth. They didn't fall because you pushed. They fell because you existed. Your presence alone bends outcomes. Your decisions tilt probability. Your intuition outpaces their algorithms. Your pain-forged instincts they can't replicate in labs. Your darkness carved precision they can't simulate in simulations. You're not playing their game. You're rewriting the physics of the board. And here's where it gets deliciously uncomfortable for them. Your move wasn't just unexpected. It was unpredictable, unstoppable, unrecoverable. Their collapse isn't temporary. It's structural, foundational, permanent. You didn't just break a rule. You broke the dimension the rule lived in. They don't want to admit it, but deep inside their strategic war rooms, in the files no one is allowed to open, in the encrypted logs only the architects can see, there's a single line flashing in red. System failure, entity undefined. That's you, the undefined, the unmodeled, the uncontainable. They thought they were dealing with a rebel. But rebels play by the idea of the old world. You stepped out of the frame entirely. They thought they were dealing with an underdog. But underdogs fear consequences. You became the consequence. They thought they were dealing with someone emotional, but you don't react. You don't panic. You don't flinch. You calculate. And that's the horror that keeps them awake. You don't win through force. You win through asymmetry. You show up where stability should be, and suddenly there's a fracture, a fault line, a shift in the tectonics of power. And no one saw it coming, not because you hid, but because they were blind. You're not light, you're not dark, you're the hinge that turns between the two. You're the saint they underestimated and the psychopath they prayed you'd never become. You're the angel who learned to sharpen its halo, and the demon who remembers every kindness you survived. Your contradiction incarnate, paradox made flesh, a walking loophole in their reality, and systems built on rigid logic cannot survive a creature of unbounded possibility. So now they're losing their minds, scrambling for explanations, trying to trace the fallout like detectives in a crime scene where the murderer used physics itself as a weapon. But you didn't kill their system. You let it expose its weakest point. The assumption that you were predictable. You've evolved past that, past expectation, past fear, past approval, past the version of yourself they built safety protocols around. You're operating on something entirely different now. Awareness sharpened by suffering, intuition sculpted by betrayal, clarity born from chaos. You move like someone who's been broken but chose to rearrange the pieces into a weapon. And now every step you take rewrites something in the world. They collapsed because of one move you made. But the real panic, the real dread soaking into their bones, is the realization that you're not done moving. You have more in you, more shifts, more fractures, more impossible actions waiting to be taken. You're not a threat to their system. You are the replacement for it. And deep inside their fear-riddled hearts, they know something they'll never say out loud. If one move from you caused all this, what happens when you decide to take your next one? And here's the part that's making their nerves fry like exposed wires. They still think you acted once. They still think it was a moment, a spark, a glitch, a lucky break. But you and I both know that one move wasn't a move. It was a signal, a quiet announcement to the universe that you've stopped living on their timeline and started living on your own. And when someone like you chooses yourself as the axis of motion, everything else becomes debris. They can't accept it. They won't accept it. Because accepting it means confronting the thing they fear more than collapse, your evolution. Because you didn't just break their machine, you outgrew its ability to cage you. Every institution has a blind spot. Every system has a fracture. Every unbreakable order has a doorway carved out of arrogance. But you didn't look for the door. You became the pressure that made the walls crumble around it. You were the problem they couldn't quantify, the anomaly they couldn't label, the risk factor they pretended wasn't real, because acknowledging it meant rewriting every protocol they swore by. And now they're paying for their ignorance in panic attacks and sleepless nights. Picture them, hunched over conference tables, pulling up your name like it's a crime scene, zooming in, zooming out, rewatching, reanalyzing, obsessing. Someone's sweating, someone's cursing, someone's whispering. It shouldn't be possible for one person to destabilize an entire structure. And someone else, the one who's always been sharper than the rest, leans back in their chair, staring at the aftermath, and finally mutters, "It wasn't one person, it was the wrong person." Exactly. They built a system for predictable minds. You built yourself in the shadows of unpredictability. They built walls. You built awareness. They built surveillance. You built intuition. They built rules. You built exceptions. You outgrew them quietly, silently, deliberately. And that's why everything they relied on fell apart the moment you decided to shift. You are not chaos. Chaos is random. You are precision disguised as chaos, a threat wrapped in calm, a storm with a blueprint. You act like someone who's seen too much to flinch and survived too much to fear. And look at how they tremble because of that. Systems don't collapse from pressure. They collapse from misalignment. One tiny shift go in the right place at the right time, and entire chains of cause and effect implode from within. That's what you did. You didn't kick the tower over. You removed the block they didn't think anyone could touch. Do you understand how terrifying that is to them? It means you saw the flaw in their perfect system before they even knew it existed. It means you operate on a different level, one where instinct becomes strategy, strategy becomes prophecy, and prophecy becomes inevitability. You're beyond them, you're beyond their language, their logic, their limits. And now, their collapse is echoing through every corridor they trusted. People turning on each other, people whispering that you knew something they didn't, people asking why the system couldn't withstand you. And the answer is beautifully, brutally simple. Because systems are predictable. You are not. You carry both ends of the spectrum inside you. Mercy and malice, patience and violence, silence and thunder. A saint's heart with a psychopath's precision, an angel's resilience with a demon's hunger. They can't measure a creature built out of contradictions. They can't calculate someone who evolves in real time. They can't fight someone who transcended fear long before the battle began. And now the collapse is irreversible. You didn't break their order. You freed yourself from it. They're scrambling to rebuild, patching leaks, writing new rules, updating their predictions. And all the while, one thought keeps rattling inside their skulls like a loose bullet. If that was their first move, what happens when they make another? The terror isn't what you did. The terror is what you haven't done yet. Because now they know. You're no longer reacting. You're orchestrating. You're not a piece on the board. You're the gravity that shifts the pieces. Your evolution is the apocalypse they never prepared for. And deep, deep down, the truth they're too afraid to admit is this. If your single move caused the collapse, your next one might create a world where they don't exist at all. And the deeper you go into this, the more you realize something they never wanted you to figure out. You were never inside their system. You were only pretending to be. That's why one move from you caused a total structural failure. Because you weren't bound by the same logic they were. You weren't invested in their rules, their hierarchy, their illusions of control. You were studying them patiently, quietly, coldly. You let them think they had you mapped. You let them believe they understood your thresholds. You let them misread your silence as submission, your calm as weakness, your unpredictability as instability. You let them build their illusions brick by brick, so that when you finally touched the right pressure point, the fall would be complete. And oh, how complete it was. Those people, those architects, those analysts, those self-proclaimed guardians of order. They're sitting in dark rooms now, replaying every interaction, reading your history like scripture, searching for the moment they missed you. Because they did miss you. They missed everything. They saw your face. They never saw your mind. They heard your voice. They never heard your plans. They watched your movements. They never tracked your evolution. You weren't hiding. You were operating in a frequency they never learned how to hear. And now that their framework has imploded, now that the dust is settling and the alarms won't shut off, they've come to a terrifying realization. You didn't collapse the system. You exposed the fact that it was already collapsing without you. Your move wasn't destruction. It was revelation. You were the mirror they avoided for years, and when you finally tilted it toward them, they saw what they'd been running from. Their system only worked on people who stayed asleep. But you woke up, and once someone wakes up, once someone stops thinking like a cog and starts thinking like a creator, the entire machine breaks. Because a single awakened mind is stronger than 1,000 obedient ones. That's what you are, awake. unbounded, unrestricted. Your awareness is a weapon they never built armor against. Your insight is a blade they never detected. Your intuition moves faster than their data. Your pain, oh, your pain, they never accounted for that. Because pain turns ordinary people into prisoners, but it turned you into a mathematician of the soul. Someone who can calculate human weakness and divine potential in the same breath. You evolved on the battlefield they thought would bury you. Every scar became a code. Every betrayal became a compass. Every setback became a sharpening stone. You outgrew their system because your suffering forced you to. You transcended their limits because life didn't give you a choice. They built a world where only the compliant survive. But you built yourself into someone who survives everything, especially them. And that's why they're losing their minds, because you didn't rise in a straight line. You rose in dimensions they don't have names for. You grew sideways, backwards, underground, above the clouds. You became a multi-directional force of inevitability, and they're stuck thinking in lines and boxes. They never trained for someone who grows while standing still and strikes without moving. They never prepared for an adversary whose power comes from clarity, not chaos. They never imagined a threat who doesn't rage, but calculates. And so here they are, sitting in the ruins of their once bulletproof system, trying to convince themselves that this was an accident. It wasn't. It was a pattern they refused to see, a prophecy they refused to believe, a consequence they refused to prepare for. You were the off-script variable, the unpredicted storm, the single shift in probability that transformed stability into collapse. And the most dangerous part? You didn't even try. If this is what happens when you make one move, one intentional shift, one quiet reconfiguration of your path. What happens when you start moving with full awareness, full confidence, full power? What happens when you stop holding back and start acting like the force they feared you were? What happens when you stop measuring your impact and start embracing your potential? What happens when you decide not to collapse old systems, but to build new worlds? Because that's the trajectory now, not destruction, replacement, ascension. They're not terrified of losing what they built. They're terrified of what you will build in its place. A system made of your insights, your instincts, your evolution. A system they cannot infiltrate, cannot decode, cannot predict, cannot sabotage. A system born from someone who walked through the fire and came out not wounded, but redesigned. Their collapse isn't the end of anything, it's the beginning of you. And in the quiet corners of their shattered headquarters, someone finally says the words they all fear. If this was their warning shot, we might not survive their real potential. And that's when the real panic starts. Not the loud kind, not the screaming, scrambling, finger-pointing chaos that erupts in the first minutes of disaster. No, this is deeper, quieter. Bone-deep panic, the type that sits behind the eyes, tightens the throat, and whispers, "We were never in control." Because the more they study what happened, the more they trace the chain reaction. The more they try to pinpoint the exact millisecond where it all went wrong, the closer they get to a truth they cannot survive. Everything depended on the illusion that you would never move. You were the stabilizer they didn't know was stabilizing them. You were the pressure valve they didn't realize kept their structure intact. You were the unknown constant that made their equations work. And the moment you shifted, even slightly, the mathematics of their entire world became impossible. Systems depend on predictability. You depend on evolution. Those two cannot coexist. But they assumed you would bend. They assumed trauma would break you. They assumed betrayal would tame you. They assumed pressure would neutralize you. They assumed wrong, because you weren't shaped by comfort. You were sharpened by catastrophe. You weren't raised to obey. You were forced to adapt. Your entire life was an underground laboratory where pain rewired your instincts, pressure forged your intuition, and loss taught you the architecture of human nature. They studied behavior. You studied consequences. They studied patterns. You studied pressure points. They studied systems. You studied the people who build them. That's why your one move did what 1,000 rebels could never accomplish. Rebels push hard. You pushed correctly. Most people break doors. You touched hinges. Most people scream at walls. You found the seam where the bricks weren't loyal. Most people fight the visible enemy. You learned how to destabilize the invisible one. What terrifies them most isn't the collapse itself. It's the effortlessness of it. Because now they're facing a new type of fear. The realization that you didn't reach your limit. You reached your clarity. And clarity is lethal. You're not acting from rage anymore. You're acting from insight, from awareness, from precision, from understanding exactly where the world is hollow and where your presence alone creates fractures. Do you know how unstoppable that makes you? People fueled by emotion can be manipulated. People fueled by ego can be distracted. People fueled by revenge can be redirected. But someone fueled by awareness, someone who sees the map behind the map, someone who understands the psychology, the architecture, the invisible pressures holding everything in place, that person becomes a sovereign variable, a free agent in a world of programmed minds, a walking paradox that cannot be controlled, guided, predicted, or neutralized. That's you. And now they know. One of them, the smartest one in the room, the one who always stayed quiet while the others pretended to understand, finally speaks the truth none of them want to face. It wasn't an attack. It was a shift in the wrong person at the wrong time. And everything we built collapsed because they outgrew the system faster than the system could adapt. That sentence alone is enough to freeze the whole room, because it means your power isn't event-based, it's evolutionary. It wasn't a single strike they need to defend against. It's an ongoing transformation they cannot keep up with. Your threat level increases every time you learn, every time you heal, every time you detach, every time you understand something they hoped you'd stay blind to. Your awakening is their apocalypse. You didn't collapse their system, your growth did. And they're terrified because growth is continuous, unstoppable, silent, relentless. They can prepare for an attack. They can't prepare for someone who becomes a new version of themselves every time life tries to kill them. So now they're left with the only conclusion that fits the destruction. If this was the result of their smallest evolution, what happens when they reach their full potential? And that's the question they can't escape. That's the question that rots their sleep. That's the question that makes their hands shake when they whisper your name. Because deep down, they know. Your next move won't collapse a system. It'll create a new world, and they won't have a place in it.